In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Marianne's guests are leaders in their field, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in their own work. They teach others to develop, refocus, and grow. Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. And remember, make every moment count.
Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so excited to be spending this time here with you today, and we've got such a great show lined up. Our first guest, Robin Weston, is the author of 808 Conversation Starters for Couples. Spark curious chats during dinner time, date night, or any moment. Now, Robin has authored over a dozen books on relationships. She is an Emmy Award-winning writer for ABC television show FYI, a sex advice columnist for Women's Own magazine, and she also does a weekly pop psychology quiz for Women's World magazine for more than 18 years. And her accolades and accomplishments go on and on and on. So let's welcome to the show, Robin.
Hi, Marianne. Nice to be here.
Oh, it's so great to have you here. Now, so I've got to ask you, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I think I was noticing that we spent, and I'm included in this observation, that I spent a lot more time on social media, using my telephone, even when I was going out on dates. You know, we'd have a few chats and then we'd each reach for our phone. Mm-hmm. And I think between Twitter, social media, and the busyness of our lives, we just spend a lot less time actually listening. So even though this book is about conversation starters, the premise is really that if we have something unique and interesting to talk about, then we'll listen.
Yeah. And I would agree with you on that. And, you know, a lot of times when I go to dinner with friends, there is a couple, offenders that will pull out their phone and they'll be on it, and they think they're being sly. They'll have it under the table, and they're not really present to the conversation.
Exactly. And I think for couples, we get even lazier when we're in a relationship. We have a busy day, we come home, what's for dinner, that's settled, and then it's almost as if we need to shut down rather than open up. And so hopefully this book will offer a way for couples to really grow in intimacy and explore the deeper aspects of themselves with one another.
It's so important, and I know that you, in your book, you talk about social media and how things are so instantaneous in the intro. And, I think going through some of these questions that you had in the book, I thought they were fascinating and just fabulous because they get people, if you're dating somebody, to kind of understand if you even have the same goals and values as the person that's sitting across the table from you.
Yes, it's really true. I tried to include a lot of questions that explored values and also even childhood traumas because we often reenact those in relationships. And I think that's very important. But, of course, when we ask these questions of another soul, we're asking them to also be vulnerable. Because when we open up like that, then we really are vulnerable. So I think that it's important for two people, couples, friends, to make sure that there's a level of trust between them before they get to the questions.
And then kind of go into I can understand why, because some of these questions, like the one I'm looking at right now, do you believe in reincarnation? Do you believe reincarnation is real? Why or why not? So it really would open up a discussion based on somebody's belief of spirituality, and to see if, again, that those hold the same values and goals that the person that's asking the question.
Exactly. That's so true. And that's a great example of a question that is digging so deep. Because if somebody says, for example, no, that's ridiculous, and even mocks the question, then the listener, the other person, would shut down. And because this is the kind of question that really explores, as you said, Marianne, the spirituality of the individual. And at the same time, if someone was asking that question almost in a this can't be, and the person responds and says yes, and then perhaps goes into an example in the why, then I think it's important for the listener to be non-judgmental, because that could really some of these questions could actually tear you apart if you're not open to the responsibility of being respectful when you get the answer.
Well, and I like how some of these questions really dive deeper. Another one I'm looking at is, what was a time in your life when your self-esteem was lower than a blade of freshly mowed grass? Now, a lot of people probably would have to be in a certain level of trust to be able to answer that question.
Exactly, and hopefully they've healed from that experience. And I suspect if they haven't, it would be very difficult to actually answer that question with candor. But I do, throughout the book, you might have noticed, I also give couples intimacy exercises. So if they might brush up against something that would be hurtful or difficult, then they have an opportunity to build their intimacy through exercise. And like some of my favorites are, the eye staring, because that immediately puts down any kind of blocks between two souls. They can, you know what they say about the eyes are the windows of the soul. Also, breathing in unison, I think, is a great way for two people to really open their hearts.
Oh, and what a great way to start tearing down those walls and those boundaries and really open up for, greater and deeper conversation.
Yeah, conversation, the lost art, right? I mean, do you
really
still have
is.
really good conversations with, are you in a relationship? I hate to be so,
I am not, but I have a lot of great friends.
Yes, so me too. And do you have great conversations with your friends, or do you feel like there are certain boundaries, though, that you can't touch?
Yeah, with most of the people I know that are very close, I mean, pretty much any topic is on the table. So we can talk about just about anything, especially when we get into spirituality or business or just about anything on a personal level. Most of the people I know are, and not so much that it would go beyond boundaries. It's more that we can have really open dialogue.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think actually, as you're speaking, I think women are more gifted in the art of A, listening, and B, following through and contributing to the conversation. And I don't know, I hate to be sexist about it, but I do think that women just have more ease and studies show, their brain that deals with verbal skills is more highly developed in general.
Well,
so I think that's helpful.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, I mean, from my generation, I mean, I'm 48, and the boys.
You're so old.
Well, it's just different than how things are today. But for my generation, like boys they're supposed to be men, and they're supposed to toughen up, and there's no crying, and you don't show your feelings. And so we kind of shut them down for conversation because, there's lots of danger areas that they can get themselves into where I'm finding that that's not necessarily what's being taught, thank goodness, or the case today.
Yeah, I think that's true. My son, who's 25, is, he can talk about emotions, and he can listen to me when I speak to him about my emotions, and he has the skill set to actually listen, and I think that's true of his generation. But, we grew up we talked on the telephone.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I think that's no longer happening.
Yeah, it really isn't. You know, it's interesting. Most people are like texting, or you just kind of it's actually mostly texting.
And even emails are a one-way street. It's not an art of conversation, the email exchange. It's the art of the email exchange. Conversation is very different because when you're sitting across from somebody, you get the opportunity to read different signals, their body language, right? How their energy feels. You're looking in their eyes. And that's just not happening when you're not face-to-face having a conversation.
Yeah. It loses so much. It really does.
So much.
Yeah, and I might be kind of a tough cookie. I don't know, but a while back I had somebody that shared my contact information it was a blind date, and instead of picking up the phone and calling me, he texted me, and I thought that was so incredibly rude. So it's just interesting how there's so much that could be misconstrued in that kind of communication,
Yeah. Well, can I confess? I prefer to text when I don't know someone. But once I'm trying to know somebody, then of course I say, we must meet, because I think conversation is something that opens the door to intimacy. It's one way to open the door to intimacy.
Well, and one of the things I want to kind of circle back around to, so in your book, you have all these mini quizzes. What are those here to do?
Well, I am a quizologist, and over the course of my career, I've written, I hate to say it, Marianne, over 1,000 quizzes. And so I first of all feel very comfortable including them in the book, and I do think that quizzes are very revealing because you have an opportunity, as you know, most of the questions. For example, here's a sample quiz I have. I say something like, when you encounter an obstacle, you're most likely to A, weigh whether you're chasing the right goal, B, decide it's best to change your approach, or C, stay on course and work harder to solve the problem. So, which would you do, by the way? Did you follow? Should I repeat?
Oh, no, I followed. I would probably do A. I reassess things all the time.
Oh, weigh whether you're chasing the right goal. Well, see, so when you give that answer, the person who's listening to your answer, really, that is so revealing. Mm-hmm. It means that you're somebody who is reflective. And you don't make quick changes, right? Because you're weighing. You're looking at it. You're turning the kaleidoscope and trying to discover whether you've made the right decision. And whereas the other answers, decide it's best to change your approach, would mean that you're someone who's a little indecisive, right? Or is quick to change their idea. Well, and then there's, of course, the person who just sticks to it, and they might be more stubborn personality.
And so these quizzes really say a lot about what's going on with the person and where they're at personally. Totally,
and we love to take quizzes. I don't know why that is, but I think human nature, for some reason, maybe because they're not really tests, that we like to take them,
Oh, I've been enjoying the ones in your book, like this one. If you witness a robbery on the street, you would, and it's like help the victim, get out of the way, or call 911. So, it really says a lot about what a person's willing to do.
Right. And, yes, that's very true. And I really don't know how I would react. I'd have to think, living in New York City, I think twice. I don't know. I'm a little edgy here. It's a little edgy in the city.
Yeah, it's kind of a little edgy in some places. So you just have to assess that kind of thing. But it's interesting to see. It's just a quiz. We're not asking somebody to go and do that. So what would they do in that situation? If all the planets were aligned, kind of thing.
Right. It's a character revealer.
Mm-hmm. It sure is. And then,
and it's also you test your values and your sense of morality, and whether you're an individual who steps up. I think that's something I really look for in a soul, is whether, they step up and understand that we're all, one.
I would agree. I would agree 100%. So out of all these fabulous questions, what are some of your favorites?
Well, for me, it's very personal to answer this because, for example, I have a question like, would you rather live in a very messy and relaxed house or an uncluttered and divinely decorated one? Now, I happen to be a neat freak, and I really couldn't live with someone who was extremely messy, even though I know messy people are more creative. So that's one of those questions that, getting down to the nitty-gritty would really matter to me.
So if someone's like on a first date and they've got this book, and they obviously have to get out and purchase the book, but they, let's say they have the book in hand, because this is it would be kind of a fun, revealing thing to do on a date, once you get to know somebody probably. And so if we're doing that, what are some of the great icebreakers that you think would be good to use?
Well, that's a great question, because I wouldn't recommend asking on a first date when you don't know anyone, really digging too deep, because as we said at the beginning of our conversation, trust is so important to be established first. And if you really don't know someone, you don't want to ask them, the worst memory they have of their mother or something.
Yeah, definitely not.
Right. So I would go for the more lighthearted questions, such as, if you had a free hour, what would you probably do with it? What's your favorite season and what do you like most about it? I wouldn't ask them, for example, what do you consider a total no-no in a relationship?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's all, too heavy. But I might ask them how they felt about animals, especially if you had a pet.
Oh, yeah. And then here's one, too. Can you name 5 everyday things that make you happy?
Oh, that's a good one for a first date.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that does reveal a lot. And if you stick to the happiness rather than the more serious or the questions that might trigger some memory, then I think it's a great thing to bring on a first date.
I think it would just be kind of fun to have people take turns asking questions as long as it's light, gets into the light. So, someone that's been, dating for a while and they're like, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about my partner because, people just aren't communicating like they used to.
Right.
I think like a lot of these mini quizzes are just perfect.
Oh, you like the quizzes.
I do.
That's what I'm saying. But again, I just, it's just as important as we said at the beginning, to be patient when someone's responding, not to jump in when they're telling you something. I think there was a study that came out, research that showed we only listen with 25% efficiency. And one thing I'm hoping happens with this book is that people really listen and tune in. So they'd have to not only be patient, but acknowledge that they hear what's being said, and I think to be non-judgmental, no matter what. That's a really tricky one.
Yeah, because, if you're asking these questions, you want to be open to what the answer will be if if it's something
right.
you're expecting or not. Yeah.
Right. So even if you disagree vehemently with an answer that's given, it's really important for the person on the receiving end to be respectful and not argumentative. You could contribute and share your view, but not in a defensive and argumentative way. Acknowledge that you heard what the person is saying and that you empathize and understand where they're coming from and that perhaps you see it differently.
Well, and what are some, because we're kind of coming to, we could chat about this for quite some time. I just have so much fun with your book, and I think it's just fascinating.
Thanks, Marianne.
Yeah, I mean, it's that. Oh, you did such a fabulous job getting this together, and it really is. I mean, I think this is just going to be all sorts of fun. What are some last thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
I think I'd like to say, and this might sound wacky, that once we really take the time to get to know somebody, that a part of our heart opens, and there's the possibility of love. And if we shut down and we don't really open ourselves up to hear what someone else is saying, and we don't have the curiosity to find out who they are, then our hearts can't open. And so this is, I think, a book can be a tool, a way to open up and certainly to connect. And I think relationships are why we're here.
Well, without a doubt, and being more present, listening to the other person, being able to communicate better, this book really gives, just anyone a head start in being able to do that.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Oh, well, thank you for taking the time to share this fabulous book with us today, Robin.
Thanks, Marianne. I loved speaking with you.
Oh, the feeling is mutual. Again, we've been speaking with Robin Weston. You can visit her website at robinweston.com. Her book, 808 Conversation Starters for Couples, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all major retailers. We're going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
He's the change management expert, interrupting ordinary lives and making them extraordinary. John Register, experiential keynote speaker, went from track and field Olympic trials candidate and Gulf War Army veteran through a career-ending injury, an amputation, to winning the Paralympic long jump silver medal in Sydney, Australia. Now he shows business executives and college sports professionals how to turn obstacles into opportunities. Book John to speak to your group. Kick off your New Year resolve to create the new normal at johnregister.com.
For over 4 million people, the clock is ticking as they hope and pray for a miracle, waiting for someone to offer them a kidney and another chance at life. Ari Sittner answered that call. Ari is a social worker, therapist, rabbi, coach, consultant, and keynote speaker, and the author of the new book, The Kidney Donor's Journey. This inspiring story shares Ari's remarkable experience of faith, family, and kindness as he saved the life of a single mom with 3 kids. Find The Kidney Donor's Journey on Amazon and visit Ari at akidneydonor.com.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special. When you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
I know we are unlimited, not only because I healed myself of chronic disease in only 3 weeks, but because I know what has helped thousands of my clients transform their own lives. My book, A Short Path to Change, 30 Ways to Transform Your Life, offers 30 easy and quick tools you can use to help transform any aspect of your life. Visit and subscribe to my site, JennyMannion.com, JennyMannion.com, for free gifts, including a guided healing meditation and the first chapter of my book. I look forward to offering you easy ways to help you get clear for the new year.
If not me, then who? This ethos is driving the Travis Manion Foundation to empower veterans and families of fallen heroes to develop character in future generations. In 2007, Marine First Lieutenant Travis Manion was killed in Iraq while saving his wounded teammates. Travis's legacy lives on in the 5 words he spoke before leaving for his final deployment. If not me, then who? Guided by this mantra, veterans continue their service, developing strong relationships in the community and thrive in their post-military lives. Visit TravisManion.org and ensure the character of our nation's heroes lives on in the next generation. If not me, then who?
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Our next guest is here today to talk to us about time management. So author Chad Cooper, he's a successful businessman, peak performance coach, community leader, loving family man, elite athlete, philanthropist, mayor pro team, and award-winning United States Marine. So when Chad retired from Microsoft at the age of 35, he opened up his own coaching organization and became a platinum master coach and show host of Business Mastery for Tony Robbins Research International. So Chad is here to talk to us about his new book, Time Isn't the Problem, You Are. So welcome to the show, Chad.
Thank you, Marianne. I am excited about spending this moment with you and your audience.
Well, hey, we are just thrilled that you're here to talk to us today about time management, among other things, and especially this book. I mean, my goodness, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, there's not enough really, there's just a shortage of time management books out there, right? No. And they're
well, there's a lot
so
of them,
exciting.
Yeah, but some of them kind of give you some things that you should do, and it's like, gosh, I'd rather not. So I kind of get it,
Yeah, exactly. So, there's a plethora of time management books out there. What's unique and different about this book, and the reason that I wrote it, was an interesting journey. My life was going great, and I had absolutely no interest in writing a book until I went to an event that I went there truthfully to support my clients so I could stay a little bit ahead of where they were at, understand what their marketing needs are, and, where their businesses need to go. And about, maybe a couple hours into it, I went, crap, there's a book inside of me. And the whole premise of this event was writing a book. And so I was invited in comp to go to this event, and I got lured into going into it and went, oh, you guys are tricky, you got me. Okay. So what I found was there was a message. And that message is not just about time management, but the message that I wanted to share with people was, how is it that you can open up your alumni magazine and see the accomplishments of maybe some former roommates? Or how is it that your brother or family member can call and brag about a new diamond bracelet for the Christmas holiday that they're giving to their spouse? And yet, the majority of us are trying to figure out how to pay our mortgage, and we know we have a new roof that we need to put on, but we're not even sure how we can begin to budget for that, let alone thinking about the extraordinary vacations that we envision and dream about. And so my background was unique in the ability that I have been able to find that path forward. I've been able to take an ordinary life and become extraordinary. In other words, create legendary lifestyles. And so that's really about what this book is about, is how to create a legendary lifestyle and what time does to allow you to master it. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of people look at it going, well, I think I'm pretty good at my time, so I'm not quite sure if I need this, but I'm still not hitting all the marks. And, I think you really hit on a key point, is that you've been there. Like, you've gone from a place where you could see kind of what was going on with your clients to a place where you're really highly successful.
And it didn't always start out that way. Look, I get the struggles of either trying to be an extraordinary employee, or maybe you're an entrepreneur and you're responsible for employees. Either way, you show up and you give everything to your career or to your job. And then when you get home, after taking care of those responsibilities, which of course you had a bundle of things to do before you left for work today, as you get home, the last thing you want to do is have more responsibilities. You have the demands of maybe your children or a spouse or maybe of some volunteer things that you do. And in between that, you're asking, what about me? When do I find time for me? And I'm no different. I get it. I've been there. So what I did is I studied. I've worked and been mentored by some of the best in the world. I worked for the #1 coaching organization in the world and worked side by side coaching the same clients at the same time with that gentleman. And so I've had the privilege of working with masters before me. And so what I was able to do was take a look at how is it that you have some people that by, let's say, society standards we would consider successful. Maybe it's Bill Gates or Oprah Winfrey or Sir Richard Branson, not about, what you think about them, but in terms of their success, they can run multi-billion-dollar industries and find time for their family and travel around the world doing philanthropy. How is it that these people can do these things and yet the rest of us are just trying to figure out how to bring it all together and create some time for ourselves? And so what I did is I looked at their processes, worked it backwards, and looked at what I do and went, wow, there's a lot of similarities here except for the bank account amount. And so I captured that and I put it into a system that has basically 4 legs to it, or a stable platform that creates a foundation for you to be able to move into a success.
So what if you have someone that comes up to you and says, and you probably get this with your clients, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't even know how to find my purpose. I just wake up and I hit all these things I'm supposed to do, but I know I'm supposed to be doing more with my life. What advice do you have to offer them?
It's a great question to ask. It's a very common question to ask, and we all, I shouldn't say all, but the majority of us are often led to believe it's one thing. And the truth is that's where I begin with my book, is being able to identify, why were you put here? What is the gift that God has bestowed upon you, and how are you able to actually act that out and use that for the world and for your own benefit? And when we look at your purpose, I offer that it isn't one thing, but it's actually how you want to feel. So it's not how much money you have in the bank. It's not what title you can achieve. It's not the kind of car or your social status in the world. We have examples that are too numerous for us to count, like Jim Belushi, Robin Williams, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Chris Farley, on we can go. People who had fame, people who had fortune, people who had everything. And yet we can look at others that have been written about and been in articles, interviewed in Rolling Stone magazine, Brad Pitt as an example. He said, look, I'm the guy that's got everything. And at the end of the day, having all these material things doesn't make your life any better. And so if we realize that it's not the material that makes us better, and Tom Brady, one of the most winning football players of Super Bowl history, said the same thing. There's got to be something more. And that something more in your purpose is how you want to feel. What do you want to experience? And so what I would suggest for our audience is to think about, grab a piece of paper and think about, what are the 2 happiest moments or memories that you can think of in your life? And your brain may be flooding in, well, this was good, but this one was better. Just think about 2 of the happiest moments that you had and write down all that you can remember about those 2 moments. And once you've written that out, then what I want you to do is actually circle the emotions, circle the feelings, and what you will find is that the more you go back, the more that you look at the happiest moments of your life, the more that you stack those moments, the more you will see repeating emotions, repeating feelings. And that is our purpose. Our purpose is to experience those feelings on a continual basis. Now, how we do that can be in numerous vehicles. And what we need to do is align the vehicles that we have, opportunities in life, with the values and feelings that make a difference in our lives and others.
I think that is a perfect way to get on the right path there. And, of course, working with people like you, either through your coaching to just kind of get the head start and figure out what the heck, what are we supposed to be doing here,
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that then identifies what am I supposed to be doing? What is it that I really want? But it doesn't, if that was enough by itself, we would be done. Everybody would be happy and fulfilled. The challenge is that identifies, but it doesn't put us in a position to actually take action or make decisions about it. Mm-hmm. And so the next step, the first is really finding out what your purpose is. The second step then is understanding that language matters. Now, the average human being, and I probably have these numbers off because they're always kind of changing around in my head for some reason, but the English dictionary, I believe, has something like 45,000 words in it. It is by far the most extensive and deep language in the history of the world. The second closest is the German language, which is a far step away in terms of the amount of words. Now, out of those 45,000, there are some words like thou, shall, that kind of stuff that really are relevant today. And we're left with about 1,200 words that describe emotion. Now, let me ask you, Marianne, how many do you think the average person uses on a regular basis? Out of 12,000 or 1,200, how many do we actually use?
Well, I think the women would have a slightly higher percentage than the men on this one.
Well, you are smarter, yes.
Well, women are it's more okay for women to be in touch with their emotions. We've trained our men not to do that. So, so it's, I know that paradigm is kind of shifting, but I don't know. I mean, gosh, what's the number?
Would 12 shock you?
Yeah, that would shock me, actually.
Average person uses 12 words to describe their emotions. Now, wow. I am a former Marine, and at the time that I served, I had about 3. And I agree with you. Men are kind of raised to believe that we need to be like John Wayne. I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm pissed. And that's the extent of it.
Pretty much.
But I believe that words and emotion are like a palette of colors. One of my brothers, I have a very large family, and one is a graphic designer. And I was looking at a color one day, and I said, yeah, that's a nice blue. He goes, that's not blue. So, what are you talking about? He goes, that's not blue. That's periwinkle or some other color. And I went, what? He goes, that's not blue. He goes, look, and pulls out this palette of all these different shades of royal blue, navy blue, periwinkle, and all kind, fog blue, all these mist and all these other colors, and I realized, wow, our language and our emotions are like a palette of color. We think that it's just the primary colors and that we're fine. But if we want to have an extraordinary life, we want to really move from time isn't the problem we are, then we need to understand that our language matters. And we need to really expand our vocabulary. And so we look at the shades and nuances of language, such as I'm melancholy, or I'm joyful versus I'm happy. Yeah. I'm exuberant, or, I'm feeling a little down versus maybe I'm numb. And so those differences actually make a difference in our lives. But the third piece to that is that they then need to show up in our calendar. So when we bring time in, what I have found is that people with extraordinary lives put empowering, juicy, and delicious language into the subject lines of their calendar. Mm-hmm. In other words, they know their purpose in each appointment or event that they come into on a day-to-day basis. But how many of us are filling our calendar with have-to-dos because we're told, suppress those feelings? That's not appropriate in the corporate world.
Yeah. Well, and the people that we work with and come in contact with expect so much more.
Absolutely. And so we're told to really not be ourselves, but be what we think society expects of us. And to do that in a robotic fashion to a certain extent. But that, when we have time for ourselves, then we can be extraordinary. Well, as I kind of pointed out, how many of us feel like we get enough time for ourselves?
Yeah.
Well, if we even shifted that and changed it from personal time to abundance, if you had 15 minutes of abundance, would it shift the meaning that you give to those 15 minutes?
I think by a lot,
So it's energy. And so we realize that our purpose is tied to our energy, and if we use energetic words, we use words that matter, it makes the difference. And so instead of sitting on maybe social media for 15 minutes, and then after that going, there's so much more, I didn't even make a dent in it, I didn't even respond to Susie and wishing her a happy birthday. Or we watch TV for 15 minutes, we think we're being cheated, not enough me time. But if we're to actually look at that as abundance, suddenly we start getting filled and we get recharged. And we're ready to go out and serve the world and serve our loved ones again.
That's a very interesting shift in perspective. And most people are not looking at me time that way. They look at it like, wow, there's just not enough time. Now, this kind of leads me to my next question is, what is the number one, time myth that you deal with your clients and in your keynote speeches that you do?
My number one time miss was the question?
The number one thing that you have employers that are asking that you talk about or you deal with, or number one thing that you have that comes up, that it could be like maybe I don't have enough time, or people aren't able to, take control of their calendars, whatever the thing is.
So the number one that I discover for most people is their use of limp language. The number one aha for other people that they will express is, I don't have enough time. And the truth is, you won't. There will never be enough time. You will go to your grave having more things to do on your to-do list than you will ever have time for.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we have is what's called the rule of 168. 168 is how many hours you get in 1 week. And it's not a matter of, it's the great equalizer, Marianne. It doesn't matter what your economic background is. It doesn't matter where you were born. It doesn't matter your ethnicity. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter any of it. We all are given 168 hours a week. What separates the girls from the women and the boys from the men is how they utilize that time. And so when people say, I don't have enough time, it's really an excuse for I don't have clarity on what I really want in my life.
Yeah,
and so that's the number one thing that we dig into.
And that kind of goes back to their purpose in some ways, because if they don't have clarity about what their purpose is, it kind of, they don't know what they're doing,
Correct. So if we think our purpose is, I'll achieve enough, then I'll be enough, right? Once I get to vice president, or once I get to director, or once I become, the owner of the business, we think that our problems at that level will all of a sudden have no problems until we get there and realize, well, shoot, that didn't make me happy. That was short and fleeting. Mm-hmm. So what we need to look for is fulfillment. And we achieve fulfillment through our purpose, where we can be self-serving, but we also have to be servant-leading. And we won't achieve true fulfillment until we are able to align our needs with others. See, if we just always are going around trying to be enough, trying to fill up, then we'll have moments of happiness. But we'll get to a point where we go, there's got to be something more. And so that is about having clarity in your purpose and then understanding how to execute that on a week-by-week basis. What's unique is that we have New Year's around the corner. And how many of us are programmed to create our New Year's resolutions? Within 5 weeks, those resolutions, on average, will end up in a drawer. Within less than 5 weeks, you will have joined a gym membership and stop going. It's a great business to be in. All you got to do is have your doors open for about 5 weeks. and you won't cancel your membership because you're in a commitment for a year.
Yeah.
And so we know that just setting our goals isn't enough. And so what I will say to our audience is it's not your strength that holds you to your purpose. It's the strength of your purpose itself. Knowing your why. I'll say it again. It's not your strength that holds you to your purpose. In other words, discipline alone. But it's the strength of the purpose itself. So as you look at your New Year's resolutions, as you look towards the next year and what you want to achieve, take a look and see how those are connected in some of the happiest moments of your life. Did you circle the emotions and feelings? Did you find the values that are underneath those moments? And do your future moments have those values attached? Do they have those emotions attached? That will then connect you to your purpose and allow you to persevere even when it becomes difficult, even when others will gather at the quitting line. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes perfect sense. And, I kind of want to go back to a little bit. You talked about how language matters. And I want to see, how does self-talk play a role in our success, and how can we create new habits by replacing those? How does that all happen?
Well, the foundation that I use is in your schedule. Look, whether you use a day planner or you write it on a piece of paper or you have an electronic calendar on your phone that syncs across all your different devices, the reality is whether it's in your head or elsewhere, we all abide by a calendar. It's just a matter of how you visualize or bring that up. And so if we acknowledge that we are run by our calendar, maybe we need to master our time rather than our time owning us or imprisoning us. And so it really starts with taking a look at what is it that you want to unfold? What is it that you want to accomplish? And then from underneath that, we then can take a look at how do I actually begin to execute that? Well, we know that language matters. So if we're using words like workout in our calendar, none of us really wants to work out. It's a select few of us that are twisted like me. Look, I was a major sponsored Ironman triathlete. I had, 13 major sponsors. They covered everything. There's no logical reason to ever want to do an Ironman. I don't care what rationale they give to you. There's no excuse for doing it. Mm-hmm. You do it because you can.
Were you in the Marines at the time that you did that?
No, I actually did this in my 30s and 40s. So I had been out of the Marines for 20-some-odd years probably. Mm-hmm. So I'm the guy that, I applied to the Guinness World Book of Records for the most bucket list items completed, the most popular bucket list items. So I have done everything from 12-hour climbs, on the cliff face, doing rock climbing, to Regimental Marine of the Year, to, Ironmans, and, I've done all those crazy things. And the way that I've done that is by being able to integrate my language into the subject line of the things that I'm going to be given opportunities or the appointments that are in front of me. Because if we use words like workout, we go, man, that sounds like pain. That's uncomfortable. I'm 10 pounds or 15 pounds. Yeah. And so what we have to do is look at people that have done that before me, and I have had the privilege. One of my specialties is coaching professional athletes. And one of the things that I work with them on, whether they are a world champion boxer or they are a Major League Baseball pitcher, is what is the mindset? And it comes down to what are the words that they're using on the inside. So if we looked at an iceberg, I think we can all relate that, you only see the tip of the iceberg. The bulk of that iceberg is underwater and the unseen. Mm-hmm. And that's our unconscious words that we say on average 400 to 500 times before those words actually end up coming out in our mouths. And so if we continually are doubting, we continue are going, that's pain, that's pain, that's pain, that's pain, that's pain, guess what we're going to experience?
A lot of
pain. And we find all kinds of excuses and defenses for why we didn't work out. Well, I had to go take care of the kids. well, the boss needed this, report done. Yeah, but like in 3 weeks. Yeah, but I really wanted to impress them. I'm going for the promotion. Right? We find all kinds of excuses.
It's easy to find all the excuses and put the roadblocks in when we don't have that dedication or that success built up yet. I highly recommend our listeners pick up your book, Time Isn't the Problem, You Are. And where can our listeners find you? I know you've got also a foundation, and I want to spend a little time talking about that too.
Sure. So you can pick up the book. Thank you for mentioning it. You can pick it up at any retail outlet. You can pick it up at Amazon. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, Costco, airports, etc. And if they don't have it in stock, you can just ask them to order it. And you can go to my website, chadecooper.com, and you can see the links there as well to be able to order the book. The audio version will be coming out here hopefully in about a month, and should be linked Audible through WhisperSync on Amazon. So you have that new technology there that allows you to read it and hear it at the same time.
Gotta love that.
That's
a great age to live in.
Yeah, I mean that's a feature that I utilize on a very extensive basis. I put it in 2x speed and get through the material and can maintain absorbing it. The other question that you had is my foundation. And that kind of goes back to the language matters and being clear about your purpose. And I found that I am far more fulfilled by finding the things that allow me to fill up and serve other people. And so I had been talking to God one day and said, I'd like to go on a mission trip. But I wasn't very clear in my ask. And he said, great, or she, whichever, version you like, said, great. You get to lead it. Whoa, wait a minute. That's not what I asked. I was like, well, they need somebody to lead this particular mission, and we need you to do it. And so it actually started out with no experience really whatsoever to years later us actually buying a facility in Guatemala, and we go down on a regular basis. I help lead teams and build teams to go down there and build houses for widowed women with children. And we do many different programs down there. So we have a foundation where I'm one of the founding board members, and you would think, Marianne, that you go down there to change other people's lives, right? I'm going to go down there, do some good, and really make a difference. But what you find is when you leave, they go back to their regular lives. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't have immense gratitude for what you've done, but they have to move on in life. But what you will find is that you are actually transformed forever. What you think will be inspirational becomes transformational. And people ask, well, why not serve your local community? There's so many other underserved people in the United States. And what we found is that when you go and do this, because it's transformational, you end up coming back having a huge gratitude for your lifestyle, and you actually become more involved in your community in a long-term basis than serving one time and calling it good.
Yeah. And you can see that there's so much good work that's happening there and so much healing that's happened and really bringing a community together. I mean, I really applaud you for the work that you're doing with that. What website can our listeners go and look at the House of Healing and Foundation and be able to connect with you there and learn a little bit more as well as far as either how they can give or donate some time?
Sure. So the book, Time Isn't the Problem, You Are, gives 10% to the charity, to the foundation. So if anybody is looking for ways that they can support it, you can do it through that manner. The other is you can simply go to houseofhealingfoundation.org, because there are many House of Healings out there. So you want to go to houseofhealingfoundation.org, and that will actually take you to what we are all about. I want to say that we just migrated it over to houseofhealingmission.org, but I know that if you go to House of Healing Foundation, it'll lead you over there.
It'll pop up. Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Perfect. Well, Chad, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us today. Gosh, we just appreciate having you here.
Absolute pleasure. I love your message and what you are sharing out with the world, and inspiring people to transform themselves. So I appreciate the invitation.
Well, thank you, Chad. We so greatly appreciate, again, having you here. If you're looking to connect with Chad, you can go to chadecooper.com and connect with him on his website and be more involved in his community as well. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in and be with us here today. Again, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to email me at mariannepastana.com. I love hearing from each and every one of you and have appreciated all the feedback and information we've gotten to this point. So I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. And remember, make every moment count.
Join us next time for Moments with Marianne, when host Marianne Pastana brings another inspirational gifted leader to help us grow. Tune in every second Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Moments with Marianne, when the Dream Vision 7 radio network is at 1510 a.m. Boston. Or catch Moments with Marianne every Thursday and Friday at 5 p.m. and 5 a.m. Eastern Time by going to dreamvision7radio.com. To learn how Marianne started her business from the ground up, visit mariannepastana.com. Don't miss this, and remember, make every moment count.